There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of mediation, The Court of Human Relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
In a rubbish heap of an ancient city near the River Nile, a party of scientists and explorers in the winter of 1897 discovered a fragment of an ancient manuscript made from Egyptian reed. Apparently, it was written in the 2nd or 3rd century. The single leaf contained 3 short sentences, only one of which was clearly legible. Now translated, it read, "The supreme happiness that life can know is the conviction that we are loved." And it seems to me that the great tragedy of life is the inability of so many people to communicate or even to accept this very substance of a well-adjusted life. And we have the ever-recurring story of rejection and frustration and bitterness and strife. Now, this is a program that deals with those strong forces that encompass us as human beings. And each issue submitted to this panel is an authentic experience of real life drawn from actual events and presenting the actual persons in conflict, each of whom desires to accept the decision. We welcome the members of our board. A truly dedicated public official who has encountered human nature on every level of human experience. Commissioner of Correction of the City of New York, Honorable Anna M. Cross. A noted authority in the field of counseling and of adult education, Dr. Lloyd E. Foster. The famed courtroom figure, an eminent member of the American Bar, Honorable Frederick R. Couder, Jr. Now, this is a case number 3911, which I think has the power to challenge the wisest consideration of this board. And here is the complainant.
Mr. Alexander, I would like to ask one question. Is there no limit to the right of parents to dominate a person's life? I'm an only daughter, 29 years old, and am engaged to be married. The date for my marriage has been set. Ever since I can remember, my parents have tried to influence my every move, and I stood it as well as I could. But ever since my engagement, which they completely ignored, things have gotten worse.
Now what's happened? What have they ordered?
Now, they object so violently to this marriage. They constantly argue and bicker with me about it. Now they have ordered me not to marry the man that I love.
What point have you reached?
I have become so nervous and frustrated that I'm afraid something drastic must be done.
Yes, well, we can understand how you feel. Now, you relax just a minute, and suppose we hear from the respondent father. Now, sir, how do you feel about this?
Well, we have no objection to our daughter getting married. As a matter of fact, we are quite interested in her getting married in the right way. But we feel that this man that she's met up with recently is entirely different from her. His nationality is different. His religion is different. In fact, his entire background is different. He's not as well educated as this girl. He just doesn't seem to be the right material. And we feel that she is making a mistake. We want her to be brought to her senses. And that's why we have come here.
Do you have any other objections to this man?
Yes, I feel that...
Do you have any confidence in him?
I can't seem to have any confidence because we can't seem to come to any agreement of talking and discussing any problems with him. He seems to lack any understanding of conversation.
Do you find anything peculiar in his manner?
I find that there's something I just can't seem to put my finger on. I have no confidence in talking to him.
Well,
Something.
You feel very strongly about this matter. Specifically, what do you find wrong? Just so the mediators, who know none of the people involved, can understand, give us an example of some fault that you find with this man.
Well, among other things, we find that... Now, would you call on a girl on a Sunday afternoon? Any of you people, if you were young, come up in a delivery truck to meet a girl who's well-dressed, come to our home in the suburbs where we live, and expect that girl, and do expect, to go out with her in the car, in that delivery truck, and take her away from your home?
And what's his manner when he comes into the home, so far as his treatment of her parents?
Why, he seems to want that he owns this girl. He comes in to start arguments with us.
What was the specific argument about?
The argument, the fact that I objected, and my wife objected strenuously, of having her stay overnight in his home on several occasions. Well, he believes, and he acts as though he owns her, outright. Long before he's married, he comes in to create arguments with us. And such a nature that is entirely belligerent. She has been belligerent to us at all times, any time any discussion has been made.
Well, when we returned home after visiting his parents, and he's my fiancé, and my parents have refused to meet his people. When we returned home, they shouted and screamed at us and accused us of being immoral, which is not the truth.
Did you feel it was perfectly proper, in view of the fact that he's your fiancé and you remained overnight in his home where his parents were, that was a perfectly reasonable and decent thing to do?
Yes.
Now, when you go home of an evening after work, how do you feel?
When I hate to go home at night because it's always constant.
Yes, now we're going to ask you, we know that you're talking under great stress, and this is a very difficult ordeal for you, but Judge Cross, Dr. Foster, Mr. Couder are all very understanding, and they want to be helpful. But they can't be helpful if you don't make your situation clear. Now, will you talk up? We know you've had a great deal of time to think about this and feel disturbed, but now's the time to tell your story. How do you feel when you go home in the evening?
As I said, I hate to go home at night because of the constant arguing and bickering. They were always picking. I hate to say this, but my parents almost seem like vultures. They were always picking on him, his character, the way he talks, his nationality, his religion, the way he walks, the way he dresses. Nothing about him is right.
Do you feel that he's equal to you in most every way?
Yes, I do. I feel he is my equal, and I'm no better than he. And in the sight of God, we're both equal. And nothing that they can say or do can destroy my love for him.
Well, now, what about this business of the truck on Sunday? I don't know how important that is, but let's clarify this thing. We understand that you're all dressed up on a Sunday afternoon, and your father is very much upset because he calls for you in a truck. Now, what about that?
He uses the panel truck for his business. And the reason that he hasn't purchased a passenger car is because that we decided it would be wiser to save the money for our marriage and our home and furniture. But instead of understanding this, my parents only ridicule him. They ridicule everything about him.
Do they ridicule his people?
Yes, they ridicule his people even though they never met them and refuse to meet them.
Well, what's the reason that you've never met his people, sir?
Because of the fact that this man has never asked me directly, as a man should.
Well, what do you mean directly?
To have the pleasure of meeting his folks. He has asked, not me, but through my daughter.
Would you like his people to come to your home first?
Should he offer me...
You mean he's never suggested
He has never suggested it at any time, directly to me. I would like to have you have the pleasure of meeting my people. In all due respect, I think I'm entitled to that. Come to me as a man. I'm his elder. To show me that respect, I would like to have you meet my family.
Well, from everything that you've said, we assume then that this man is just not the right material to be the husband of your daughter.
No, we have no confidence in him. We have no faith in him, the way he carries on. Because she has had numerous boyfriends before she met this fellow. They're only a month before she met him. In 1958, within a short period of time, she had 3 different boyfriends.
Well, what do you call
always.
What do you call a short, during the year of 1958?
During the year of 1958.
Well, what do you call a boyfriend? A gentleman
Someone
who
called
calls
on
and
her, a
takes
gentleman
her?
had called on her several times, and within a short period of time, it was all over, blew up.
Well, would you call that a boyfriend because the gentleman called on her?
Well, in the respect that it seemed to be 1 week after the other, to have a young man call on my daughter and suddenly break off with no
Well, did you expect
apparent reason, I
Did you
would say.
expect a proposal of marriage from each of these
No,
men?
I wouldn't, but I would expect something that wouldn't be so abrupt when they were cordially entertained in my home.
Well, is there any other reason we address the daughter here why your people feel you shouldn't marry? Any financial reason?
Yes. They say that I'm financially obligated to them, even though for the past, it's almost 13 years that I've been working. There hasn't been 1 week that I haven't given a good part of my salary into the house, and yet they say I'm still financially obligated to them.
Well, what about that obligation?
No, we just recently bought this home, and it was a clear understanding for her and my son to contribute some part of the down payment, which was 1/3 apiece, as an investment on their part, to come in with us and purchase a home out in the suburbs.
Well, sir,
They did so readily and without twisting either one of their arms. They did it as an investment.
Well, whose name is this house in?
The home legally has to be in the husband and wife's name, mine and my wife.
And you feel that as long as your daughter is in the home, she ought to contribute part of her
It
salary.
is no more than right and no more than fair. We don't ask her to make any greater contribution than she did previously, or hardly very much more, and yet the upkeep of the home is considerably more than what we had previously.
Well,
We don't
Judge
expect
Cross and
her-
gentlemen, I think that this situation has been well clarified. How do you feel about this, Mr. Couder?
Well, Mr. Alexander, this is one of those unfortunate conflicts. Everybody would be far better off if the parents and the young woman should be in accord. Well, evidently they're not. I'm struck by the fact that this young woman is 29 years of age. She has been working for, what did you say, 13 years?
Almost 13 years.
And during that entire period, all of your life, you've lived at home,
Yes.
I take it. So obviously, you would be inclined to give great weight to your parents' views and your parents' advice, particularly about a matter as important as marriage. But in final analysis, you are grown up. You have had the experience of living 29 years, earning your own living. On the whole, Mr. Alexander, it seems to me that this young woman must make her own decision in this matter. I think perhaps she might be wiser to, in view of the conflict with her parents over this matter, to postpone a little bit longer any final action. And then if she still wants to go ahead with it, I would think that was her business and her own responsibility, finally.
Do you agree, Judge Cross?
There's a question in my mind as to whether postponing it, it would be sufficiently valid here in view of her statement that it's taking such a toll of her emotionally. She says she's at the breaking point. But what it seems to me the father ought to consider is that the reasonableness of it. Surely when you bought the home, I'm sure you must have envisaged the possibility of her getting married. I'm sure, Mr. Alexander, any father and mother would think a young woman at that age might get married, and that contingency would arise any time, so that the question of her participating in the financial end of keeping up a home in which you say was an investment for her certainly couldn't be weighed as against her happiness. Now, on the question of who is to make the final choice and who can better understand what she needs as far as a life partner is concerned, it would seem to me that a father ought to recognize that that can't be made by anyone but the person. I'm sure when he decided to marry his wife, it wasn't that his father and mother thought she was the right woman for him, but that he felt she was the woman he wanted to marry. And I think that is the important thing. And I'm rather astonished that at this day and age, any parent will take into consideration the vehicle that a man called on his daughter. I think, on the contrary, I would lay a great deal of stress on the fact that here was a young man that wasn't just a show-off, just wanted to come in a big Cadillac without any idea of where he might have gotten the money to get it. There's some substance there. He's perfectly willing to face the world as it is, if all he has is this business vehicle, and his girlfriend knows it, and he comes there to take her out in it. I can't see that anyone would object to it. In my own situation, as far as I'm concerned, I would have considered that to the young man's credit, that he's not showing off, he's not just throwing money around. And I've always known that one of the great difficulties that occurred as young people tried to understand one another, that before they were married, the man usually put on such a front that when they faced realities in life, the clash came. Now here he's letting her know in advance that they have to plan and take their financial situation into consideration. And although I don't know him, I think that would be to his credit.
Well, thank you, Judge Cross. Dr. Foster?
Well, it's very plain that unknowingly, I believe, the father and mother have retained a control of their daughter which they do not realize. That is one of the dangers, I think, of a daughter growing up in the home and staying on. A case came to my attention recently of a mother who directed and supervised her daughter while in high school. Then the daughter went away to college, was gone 4 years and directed herself. But when she returned, the mother reinstated the same sort of control that she had over her as a high school girl. She didn't realize that she'd grown up. She was an adult. Now, this young woman is an adult, and she must make her own decisions. And it seems to me that this conflict that has erupted comes out of this matter of parental control and also of financial contribution. And I think there's just one thing for you to do. You must leave home. You are intelligent and you're capable, but you are under great nervous strain. You've reached a place where something must be done that is drastic and for your good. And I hope that the father and mother will see this and agree to it, that you leave home now and establish yourself and establish your own independence as a personality. And then in the light of that, make your decision as to whether you will marry this man or not. Actually now, the father and mother are driving the daughter toward this man. If you will give her a chance, objectively, to evaluate him, then she will make, I believe, the decision that she should make.
Well, thank you, Dr. Foster. I think it's only proper that the respondent father have a chance to say something here. What is your view of the board's opinion?
Well, the entire emphasis by the board was placed on the monetary situation. But such is contrary to actually what it is. It's the religious issue that we object to wholeheartedly. This man, his religion is entirely different than ours. And we don't expect the materialistic value of the two religions where they're going to clash in some future date. They don't coincide with ours, nor with her upbringing.
Well, may I say this? I think it rather unjust to attempt to involve the board on a matter connected with a religious controversy. The fact remains that your daughter, notwithstanding his religion, wants to marry him anyway. And is that your viewpoint?
Yes, it is. I don't think that the religion will come into it, because spiritually, materially, morally, we have spoken of this many times between the two of us, and we're in one accord.
Mr. Couder?
Well, it had occurred to me earlier, and I didn't get around to it. I wonder if the parents of this young woman have given any consideration to the possibility that their very pressures on this young woman may be forcing her into the marriage. Maybe back of it all is that pressure from the parents that are upsetting her and maybe precipitating a marriage she might not otherwise make.
No, I don't think that's the case, sir. I've gone out with many boys
Well, that was
and
the
young men
reason-
that my parents didn't approve of.
Well, anyway, what has been the effect of this whole thing on you?
Well, the whole thing for the past months has just made me so nervous and frustrated that I'm just a nervous wreck over it. They make me feel like some kind of a criminal because I want to get married. Is it wrong for me to want to get married?
Well, I don't think that that is what they think, that it's wrong for you. I think it's natural for parents to try to let children understand the differences in religion may make trouble in the future. But with a young woman that is 29 years old and you've explained it to her, and apparently religion must have had some influence in her upbringing, and still she wishes to marry out of her faith, all you can do is say, I have warned you. I am telling you what the possibilities are. It isn't pleasant to us. We may not find that we can accept it, but if you really have weighed this, and in light of all that you know, and in light of what you feel, you'll have to face it later on. We can't do it for you. But I don't think parents in this day and age or at any time could take the position that they can say, well, you cannot marry this person for whatever the reason, even if it is religious. On the contrary, the fact that it is religious should make parents try to get the child to understand the deep significance of religion. And in that instance, certainly it's the highest concept of love. And if she feels that that isn't going to make a difference, all you can hope and pray for is that it won't. But I don't think you can say, well, now, you can't marry this man, we're going to turn you out because of it, and put her in the position where the only safeguard for her, as Dr. Foster so well said, is to get out of the house.
Well, Judge Cross, I think, too, that Mr. Couder's point is well taken.
It is.
That this young woman, for her own sake, and regardless of her statement at this time, would do well to make sure at this point that she is marrying the man because that's what she really wants, not because her parents ordered her not to. Although expressed in a number of ways, the viewpoint of the board on this issue is very clear. It's been emphasized that the true function of parents in this instance or any instance is to help a child, to cooperate with her, to help in every possible way. And it seems to me that parents and to members of this board must help a child to learn to stand on his or her own 2 feet and develop a sense of independence. Now, it's been emphasized and been re-emphasized in this and similar cases that once the parents have done their best to guide and advise, their obligation is fulfilled, that there is nothing further they can do. Now, the board has emphasized that to insist on further control serves no purpose other than to invite and encourage the very rebellion that is so resented. As we bring this session of the Court of Human Relations to a close, may we extend our appreciation to the distinguished mediation board of this evening. The Honorable Anna M. Cross, Commissioner of Correction of the City of New York, one of America's most eminent clergymen, Dr. Lloyd E. Foster, and one of the great trial lawyers of our time, long a member of Congress of the United States, Honorable Frederick R. Couder, Jr. You know, many times, and I see we just have a moment remaining, people ask me to suggest the 3 basic elements necessary in a mediation proceeding. The first is the willingness on the part of each party to admit that perhaps he may be wrong, that there may be another side to the question. Secondly, there must be confidence in the integrity of the mediators. And thirdly, there must be the willingness to accept an adverse decision to accept the decision with a spirit of sportsmanship.